Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum, Irini Mazisu, Pax Vobiscum. Peace be unto you. Welcome to 2 Samuel chapter 15. There are 37 verses, beginning in verse 2, cause versus controversy, cried versus called, okay, I'm looking for cried. I can't see that right now. Oh, cried here. Cried to him versus called. 3, affairs versus matters. Right and clear versus good and right. Verse 4, judge him versus would do him justice. This is Absalom making his, putting forth his best foot, so to speak. He's giving his best offer to the people, trying to sway their minds and their hearts. And verse 6, we can see he gained their hearts versus stole their hearts. Verse 7, I will go now versus I pray you. So we can see he's not saying, please let me go. He's saying, I'm going now. Absalom speaking to his father. Verse 10, is become king. So Absalom has become king in Hebron. Not that he rules, he has become king. So there's a process at hand. Verse 11, chosen versus called. So not just simply called, just any random people or men. These were hand-picked, prepared for their purpose. Perhaps battle is what I'm thinking, war ready. Verse 12, the Thechanite versus the Gilonite. Verse 14, speedily versus suddenly. So one is talking about length of time. The other one talking about the element of surprise. Verse 17, abode in a distant house. So the king and all his servants, talking about King David, lived in a distant house, so in an abode that was afar off. In the Masoretic it says he waited in a place that was far off. So no, he didn't wait there, he lived there. Otherwise he'd be waiting a long time. Verse 18, and they stood, there's an omission talking about, and they stood by the olive tree in the wilderness, and all the people marched near him, and all his court, and all the men of might, and all the men of war, 600, and they were present at his side. Verse 20, shall you charge your place? Versus, should I this day make you go up and down with us? Or shall you change your place? Sorry, did I say charge? Shall you change your place, not charge? Significant difference in the same verse. It says here, and may Adonai, may Yah deal mercifully and truly with you. Versus mercy and truth be with you. Like they were personified. No, this is referring to the mercy and the truth in terms of how Adonai will deal with you. Verse 22, the omission is with me. Come and pass over with me. So King David is saying, I will go with you. Go with me, I should say. And then talks about the king passed over. So the King David was omitted from this verse 22. We have no idea that King David actually accompanied Ittai, or I should say Ittai accompanied King David. And then it says all his servants in this verse could be referring to King David's men, not Ittai's men. He's not the king. Verse 23, an omission of over the brook, Kidron, and then another omission, and the king. Again, the king passed on, not just the people. So this verse in the Masoretic, both 22 and 23, if we just take it as they are, take these verses, accept them as the truth, we have no idea that King David actually went with him in verse 22. Until 23, it mentions in passing that the king also himself passed over. He also went, but it sounds like he secretly followed Ittai, not that they had a mutual agreement or that they were even in the same company. They left at different times. That's the way it reads. That is the way it reads in the Masoretic. Can be taken that way. Verse 24, an omission of from Baithar or Bethar. Verse 25, the beauty in regards to the Ark of the Covenant versus its habitation. Well, David knows where the habitation is. It's not about where it's going to be. He already knows. Verse 27, behold, you shall return. Versus, are you not a seer? So are you not a prophet? Why would he be a prophet? He's a priest. Verse 28, significant difference. I think it's our first one. Yeah, looks like the first one in this whole chapter. I continue in arms in Arabath of the desert. Versus, see, I will tarry in the plain of the wilderness. So one is saying, I will continue to be ready for battle. King David speaking. Versus, I'm just going to wait in the desert, not ready to battle. There's no implication. There's no idea that there's no inkling. There's nothing to hint that David is ready for war. But here, explicitly in the Septuagint, tells us, King David says, I continue in arms in Arabath of the desert. Now, Arabath could very just well mean a plain translation of that word. And then another significant difference in the second half of the verse, until there come tidings from you to report to me. So I'll wait there. I will continue to be ready for battle in Arabath until you bring news to me, to report to me. Verses, until there come word from you to what? To certify me, which in our modern vernacular, certify means to approve, to accept, to declare is another way to understand it, or inform. But we have no idea that this means inform unless you look at the Hebrew behind this. So that is a problem of translation more than anything else. And then when you mistranslate it, you lose the meaning of it being reporting to him, and even the tidings themselves. So tidings to report. So it's one thing to report to him, but what are you reporting? What are you informing him of? It is the tidings, the news in regards to Absalom. Verse 29, it continued there, talking about the ark, versus they tarried there, talking about Zadok and Abiathar. Verse 31, disconcert, which means to disturb the council, versus to turn the council. Verse 32, Raz, which means top or head. And then we see top in the Masoretic. In regards to Hushai, he is the chief friend of David. We don't know this in the Masoretic. It just says he's the Arkite, someone from this place called Architaean, but a place, he's from that place that bears the name of Arkite. In verse 34, we have a significant difference, our second one. There's an omission talking about thy brethren are passed over, and the king, thy father, is passed over after me. And now I am thy servant, O king. Suffer me to live, at one time, even of late. So all of that was omitted from the Masoretic text. We have no idea about this conversation taking place. But this is what King David has instructed Hushai to tell to Absalom, to inform him that your brethren passed over as well, and your father, the king, also. And now I am your servant, O king. Let me live. So we can see the attitude that he's instructing him to take at one time, even of late. And then it continues on. I was the servant of your father, and now I am your humble servant. Even the humble part actually was omitted as well. So we can see the attitude of humility. So humble was also omitted. I did not notice that until now. And then again, disconcert versus defeat. Verse 35, we're going to ignore that one. We're going to look at the last verse, which is 37, which is a clear contradiction. Maybe not so clear, but to me it's a contradiction of verse 32 in the Masoretic text, because it does say Hushai is David's friend. How do we know that? Unless the Septuagint exists. Otherwise, we don't know that. It simply copies what is in the Septuagint, because in verse 32, there is no indication that he is even his friend. It just says he's the Archite, not his friend, nothing to provide any detail as to the relationship between King David and Hushai, nothing at all. So that's all for this chapter. Thank you very much for your time. Till next time, I bid you all Shalom Aleichem. I'm not going to try it. I'm just going to Assalamu Alaikum. Irini Mazisu, Pax Vobiscum. Peace be unto you, and Maranatha. I missed something. Hold on, the video's not over yet. Verse 3. There was a footnote. There was a footnote in the hard copy edition regarding this verse, right and clear. So the word clear actually means easy to be understood. So your affairs are easy to be understood and right. So he's really buttering them up. Whereas in the Masoretic, he's saying they're good and right. So it's like a redundancy. It's good and it's also right. So I think we can see, yes, Absalom is very clever in the way he's dealing with the people of Israel. Okay, until next time, Maranatha.